Hello, my name is Reverend Dr. May Elise Cannon. Today is Thursday, April 25th. Today is the 200, I don't even know how to say it, 202nd day since October 7th. There's a lot to share. We're on our Pilgrimage to Peace tour. We're in Wheaton. We're traveling to universities, to colleges, to churches, Wheaton College, North Park Theological Seminary, North Park University. I'd love to talk to you about that. But I want to tell you what's happening in the last 24 hours. You know, in a lot of ways, the United States is erupting. There are protests happening, and there are divisions in so many ways. And we haven't really moved the needle in terms of bringing an end to the violence. As Passover continued this week in New York City on Tuesday, it was the second night of the Passover holiday. Thousands of New Yorkers filled Grand Army Plaza in Brooklyn. It was a mass Seder dinner organized by Jewish Voices for Peace, If Not Now, Jews for Racial and Economic Justice. It was a sit-down protest called Seder in the Streets. This was the same time that the Senate was passing the bill for the $95.3 billion aid package for Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, after the House had passed their series of parallel aid packages. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer was probably in Washington shepherding the measure, but the crowd was in shouting distance from his home, and they urged him to drop support for the bill that would send $26 billion to Israel for wartime assistance. Some money would go to Gaza for humanitarian aid. Of course, the bill passed, and President Biden signed it into law. Meanwhile, outside of Gaza, the Israeli Defense Forces have informed the government that they are ready, their preparations are complete for their upcoming operation in Rafah. This is our gravest concern. A ground invasion in Rafah, where the majority of the population who've been displaced are located, is our gravest concern at this moment. And the army said it's ready. And so the war cabinet will make the decision. It's undetermined when the start date will be. Egyptian President al-Sisi reiterated his country's stance that Palestinians should not be displaced, particularly to the Egyptian-controlled Sinai. We have gotten reports that tents have been erected. The Israeli army has said they haven't done it. But reports are that populations could be displaced to these tent locations, which would allow for this ground invasion to occur. U.S. President Biden released a statement with leaders from 17 other countries who have citizens that are held captive in Gaza, calling on Hamas to release the hostages that are still being held there, saying that it could bring an immediate and prolonged ceasefire. And dozens of people, some of them family members of hostages, protested out of the Defense Ministry headquarters in Tel Aviv, where the war cabinet was meeting. In Jerusalem, hundreds participated in prayers for hostage Hirsch Goldberg Pullen in Jerusalem. This was a day after Hamas released a video that showed him alive and in captivity with an amputated arm. His father, John Pullen, expects world leaders to do more to secure the release of hostages, saying that these hostages come from 25 countries around the world. We're saying, where are all the leaders? Top Hamas official Khalil al-Hayya told the Associated Press that Hamas is willing to agree to a truce of 5 years or more with Israel, that they would lay down their arms, that they would convert to a political party if an independent state of Palestine is established along pre-67 borders. Hamas wants to join the Palestinian Liberation Organization, which is headed by Fatah, the rival political faction. This is according to al-Hayya, in order to form a unified government for Gaza and the West Bank. That's big news in terms of the political situation for Palestinians. Al-Hayya, who represents Hamas in ceasefire negotiations, also said Israel presented to the mediating countries maps that show that Israel wants to take over or intends to take over 20% of Gaza when the war ends. This is saying that during the negotiations, Israel has declared their intention of taking over 20% of Gaza. An Egyptian delegation is reportedly expected in Israel on Friday to continue negotiations. The European Parliament voted to condemn Iran after its attack on Israel. This was a decision of 357 to 20. This includes adding the Revolutionary Guards to EU's list of terror groups and expanding sanctions on Iran, recognizing Iran's disobedience in keeping nuclear law, and recognizing Iran's role in destabilizing the Middle East. Iranian forces have pulled out of bases in Damascus and southern Syria and will potentially be replaced by Iraqi militants, according to reports. Israel's war cabinet has convened to discuss efforts to renewed negotiations. And in the West Bank, a 16-year-old Palestinian was shot and killed by the IDF in Ramallah. Back in the US, there is conjecture about the application of the Leahy laws. We've talked about these before, and that's where they would be applied to specific units. It's possible one of these units could be a Haredi unit, ultra-Orthodox religious Jews, called the Netzah Yehuda Battalion, or also known as the 97th Battalion of the Kfar Infantry Brigade. It was created in 1999 to allow religious recruits to serve in the military. It operates in the West Bank. There have been reports previously in 2022, they were reprimanded for allowing the death of Omar Assad, a 78-year-old Palestinian American. Also, an update on the situation on college campuses. Yesterday, the House Speaker Mike Johnson visited Columbia to meet with Jewish students. Johnson said Israel and Jewish students will not stand alone. Protesters nearby said they couldn't hear him, and he responded, "Enjoy your free speech." There have been arrests. The University of Southern California canceled their graduation ceremony because of protests. The university had canceled a commencement speech by the school's pro-Palestinian valedictorian because of safety concerns. The Los Angeles Police Department said 90 people were arrested last night during a protest. I could give you updates about what's happening at all these college campuses, but I could give you an update about each of these college campuses, but I don't have time. I refer you to my update about Tuesday and the Mondaweiss article from the Columbia professor, James Seamus, the Jewish American professor there, who so beautifully talked about combating anti-Semitism, but differentiating between legitimate criticism of the state of Israel. I thought his piece was very powerful. I admire the courage of students who are literally willing to risk their futures and the potential of not getting a college degree because of suspensions to stand up against the death of thousands of people. Please, 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 if you are protesting, do so non-violently with our words, non-violently with our actions. The sacrifice of so many is courageous. Might the activism that is happening around the country be led by voices of courage and reason, not hatred and anger. And, the death of thousands of people should make us angry, but may we be motivated by love and not anger. May we protect Jewish students, and may we protect Palestinian students, and may we stand up for Palestinian lives and stand up for Jewish lives and advocate for peace. I just found out today that my denomination is not publishing an article about my work because they think that it's too contentious. And I'm the alumni of the year for my seminary. And, they think the tensions are too high. So God help us. People are dying, and that is not okay. So let's continue to work for peace, and let's do so motivated by love. That's my hope and my prayer.